Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. You know, if you woke up this morning after Joe Biden's speech and you were angry, you know he was talking to you. If you woke up all, you know you're one of the MAGA folks he was talking to. You know you're one of the red hat wearing, flag waving terrorist folks he was talking about. One of the people attacking and destroying democracy. You know who you are. This is one of those days where the rest of us woke up and went, yeah, yeah, Joe, but about time, Joe, about time you came around to the reality that there's a fight out there to be had. That, you know, maybe the fight we should be taking on are these people who want to tear down our democracy and tear our country apart. Now, for those who don't know, you know, the president gave a speech on Thursday in front of Philadelphia's Independence Hall, and the people who were, again, the people who woke up in the morning angry, were angry about the red background. And they said, "Oh, this looks just like Hitler." And again, I love it when Nazis accuse other people of being Nazis. It's really cute. It's cute when actual fascists and actual Nazis accuse others. You know, that kind of projection thing. I think it's kind of cute. But it is exactly what it is. And look, I love the speech the president gave. It was the right speech. He had the right tone and delivered it well. I give him credit. Normally, Joe's not the greatest orator. Because understand, he's got the speech thing. He's got some issues there. Not the greatest orator, but gave a great speech. And he's right. The MAGA Republicans don't respect the Constitution. Very clear about that. Very clear that Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. How can you disagree with that? I don't. He also said that there's no question the Republican Party is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and that is a threat to this country. And he's also right that we are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on our democracy. We cannot stand by and let them do this. Because he's right. You can't love this country. You can't claim to love the country. You can't claim to be a patriot if it's only when you win. Sorry. And look, he said, I will not stand by and let elections be stolen by people who simply refuse to believe that they lost. And they did. They lost. That's simple. Now, as I said, if you woke up today, you woke up angry. If you woke up angry, he was talking to you. So the question I have is, how's that red hat fitting today? How's that feeling today? Now, my problem pretty simply, my problem is Biden seemed to want to try and couch things in terms of the MAGA Republicans as opposed to the rest of the Republicans. I'm not trying to save the Republican Party from itself. I view it as all Republicans who support the agenda right now and aren't speaking out strongly against what Trump has been doing and what the party is currently doing. I put them all in that category. But I understand why President Biden has gone that route. I get it. But I don't necessarily agree. Let's go to the phones. We got Kurt on line one. Kurt, how you doing today?
Hey, good evening and happy Labor Day to you, Mr. Smith.
Same as you. What's up?
So when's Mr. Smith going to go to Washington? That's what I want to know. But seriously, though.
Well, that's something we've discussed.
But hey, but seriously, though. Last night, President Biden gave that wonderful on-the-mark speech. It had to be said. It had to be done. But here's the thing. All these red hat maggots that are butthurt this morning from being called out for what they are, tomorrow night, Donald Trump's going to be in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, saying the same stuff about Democrats and liberals and women and blacks and Mexicans and homosexuals and people who aren't Christian. And you know, those same people that were so upset about being called out for what they really are, they're going to eat his crap 2 and 3 times over before that speech is done tomorrow night.
Yeah, and they're going to prove exactly what President Biden said on Thursday to be absolutely the God's honest truth. And then they're going to be angry that Biden pointed it out. That's the ironic part. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing yourself and being angry by what you see.
And you know what? I'm going to say, you brought that up. If Donald Trump did one good thing for this country, and I'm being dead straight serious as a heart attack about this, if he did one good thing for this country, it's he made the average American look at themselves in the mirror and just realize how ugly a human being they really are.
Yeah, but my problem with that is they looked in the mirror. They said, I look pretty good this ugly. And, hey, there are a lot of ugly other people ugly, too, and we're going to all come together and, well, try to overthrow our country and go in a direction where we can go get those people that we don't like. That's my problem.
Exactly.
That is the legacy of the Orange Menace.
That and the fact that he so what do you think about all these missing files now? All these missing files that were either out of the folders or in his desk drawer. So was he, one, collecting the stuff for nostalgia? No. Was he going to write a memoir? Well, he doesn't even know how to read, so why would he write a book? Plus, what publishing company wants to take the liability of those lies? Or was he going to trade them for secrets, or was he going to trade them, or was he going to sell the secrets?
Or did he?
Cash hurt? What's that?
Or did he already? The folders are empty.
Right. And then my other question is, why was Kevin McCarthy so gung-ho about Donald Trump needs to take responsibility for January 6th, blah, 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 Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. And then he goes down to Mar-a-Lago, or as Randy Rhoads likes to call it, Mega-Loco, and all of a sudden he kissed the ring, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, January 6th was just it's just a tourist. It was just a bunch of tourists visiting. It wasn't anything serious. If there's recordings of telephone conversations, which they say there could be, or if there's stuff on any Congress people, how much blackmail do you think Donald Trump has on Kevin McCarthy to change his tune, as well as all these other people?
There is the question, is it not?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. Lindsey Graham. He did a complete 180 after January 6th. Kevin McCarthy. All these people that, I would have thought, okay, maybe they're finally seeing the light, and then they go down to Mar-a-Lago and they kiss the ring, and all of a sudden it's like, can't talk about that anymore. He's a good guy. We're on his side. He didn't do anything wrong. So that leads me to wonder, blackmail.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Kurt. I appreciate the time, man. Good stuff.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You got questions? Got questions. And look, those empty folders, where's that stuff at? Now, they're going to be able to find out what that stuff was supposed to be. Now, will we ever find out? I don't think so. But somebody's going to. Still hope. But as we kick off Labor Day weekend, I hope everyone has a safe, fun, happy Labor Day weekend. For me, this is a special time. Labor Day, our 17th anniversary will be Monday. It's been 17 years we've been doing this little program. Started with the idea of adding some balance to the airwaves, giving listeners an opportunity to hear something other than right-wing blather. We have grown from a single station in central Pennsylvania to being heard on stations all across this country. We want to thank you, our listeners, our friends, and all the folks who have helped us along the way. It has been an amazing journey to this point, and I just wanted to throw that out first because, again, Labor Day is one of these, for me, special holidays because the history that goes along with remembering what it took for workers to build a prosperous working class, and in this moment, what it's going to take for us to move forward to rebuild. And again, it comes back down to the political end of this. It comes back down to us connecting. What Trump has done masterfully, and what Republicans have done masterfully, is divide us, rip us apart, slice and dice. It's what the wealth class has always done well. Slice and dice and pit people against each other on race and on gender and on ethnicity and on religion and on orientation, everything. Hair color. They'll figure out a way to divide people to suit their aims and their needs. It's up to us. It's up to us to come back together. And in the workplace, for me, That's one of the places where we should be fighting to make sure that we are united, so we can fight for better wages, hours, conditions. We can fight for better opportunities, not just for ourselves, but for our kids and for the future of this country. And I'll tell you, it's something that we most certainly, without question, have to do. So hope you have a safe, happy Labor Day weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Got to take a quick break. When we come back, Mandela Barnes going to be here. He's a candidate for governor for Senate. Yeah, Senate. He's the lieutenant governor in Wisconsin. He is the Senate candidate out in Wisconsin. We're going to get some thoughts from Mandela Barnes about the race out there with Ron Johnson, the guy who thinks, yeah, we don't need jobs in Wisconsin. Send them to South Carolina. That's okay. We don't need those union jobs. Crazy stuff. Quick break. Right back with Mandela Barnes.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, you know, I've always said that we have the best democracy money can buy, and fairly cheap. And it appears that today's poster child is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, because the good folks over at Up North News, they've got a report out that says that a number of executives and companies who have outsourced jobs from Wisconsin have given the senator about $77,000 over the years, which I guess, you know, because I've asked this question a bunch, you know, why isn't Ron Johnson angry at that Oshkosh company that wants to take all those union jobs to South Carolina? You go, really? South Carolina? Why did he believe Wisconsin's got enough good union-paying jobs with health care and retirement security and job security and safe working conditions? And I have no idea. Maybe my next guest will have an idea. That's why I've asked Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes to come talk with us. Maybe the guy in November who's going to send Ron Johnson back to his millionaire mansions and to his billionaire boys club. Lieutenant Governor, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, of course. Thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to talk about the race and talk about our plan to win.
Yeah, but I gotta start with this, and I know we're going to talk about you in a second. But you know, watching politics over the years, saying that I'm okay with a thousand good union jobs going to another state, that used to be the death sentence for a senator. I'm completely baffled on how this isn't.
Well, that's the thing, is political malpractice. It is representative malpractice, in fact. It's disgraceful, but it's not surprising. And I'll tell you, it is 1,000 jobs on the surface, yes, but it's also 1,000 opportunities for working class families so that kids growing up just like me can have a fair shot at success. I wouldn't be here today without my dad's UAW job on the assembly line. Now, Ron Johnson's a person who's come out in support of sending American jobs overseas, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised when he lets them go out of state. You know, saying that we have enough jobs here shows the complete disconnect, the lack of understanding of reality that we're experiencing with Ron Johnson, the U.S. Senate. And as you know, the folks over there at Oshkosh Defense have been some of his biggest financial backers. And once again, he puts the interests of his wealthy donors before his own community, his own backyard in Oshkosh.
I mean, here's the thing, and for me, this is kind of one of those. I guess it's because I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. We were dirt poor by American standards. And I watched as people got those union jobs that Ron Johnson is saying Wisconsin doesn't need. I watched their lives get better. I watched they had food at the end of the month. They got, the kids got bicycles. They got a secondhand car. Eventually they got to move up and out and had better lives. So for me, as a young kid growing up in the 70s in the projects, union job, better life. That to me still stands. So to have somebody in the Senate go, Don't care. We're going to send it to the most anti-union state in the country. I mean, there's some symbolism there for me, Mandela.
Well, certainly. And the symbolism is the most frustrating part. I was born and raised in the city of Milwaukee. I was in the heart of the city. And my parents were both active union members. My dad was in the UAW, still very active in the UAW. My mother was a public school teacher for 30 years, very active in the teachers union. I mean, even before that, my granddad moved to Milwaukee after serving in World War II. He was a union steelworker. And while I don't come from a wealthy family or well-connected, I'm proud to be from a union household. And I know the struggles that working people face because those are also mine. I also know the triumphs. And that's what's allowed me to be able to connect with people all across this state, because even though some of our lives may look a little bit different depending on where you're from, our struggles, our challenges, but also our hopes are the same. And it was those union jobs, as you mentioned, I'm glad you brought it up. It was those union jobs that gave my family a ticket to the middle class, as union jobs have done for so many other people across this country, especially in the industrial Midwest. There were doors of opportunity that were open for me that so many people can only dream of. And that's actually what's at stake with this election, because the jobs that we're fighting for, the type of jobs that you can raise a family on, the type of jobs that let your kids go to college if that's what they choose, or let you take care of your parents if they get sick and not have to worry about putting food on the table. It is the type of jobs that will rebuild the middle class in Wisconsin and across the country. It is quite clear that Ron Johnson is against opportunities for Wisconsin, opportunities for America for that matter. I mean, he just voted against the CHIPS Act as an example.
And again, I have no idea how a senator does that. But here again, it comes from different perspectives. I'm sure this is someone who's never seen a day of struggle. This is someone who lives in his mansion, and that, as where folks like you and me, we understand what struggle is. And I talk about this all the time. I have led what is the American dream because of that union card I carry in my wallet. That ideal that I was born believing in, that if you work hard, you play by the rules, that you actually get ahead. I believe that, and I want that for every kid. I want that kid that's growing up in the housing project that I grew up in to have the same opportunities, the same path to a solid middle-class existence that I've had. Look, I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I've had a great life, and I've done great things that I'm proud of. I want that for everybody.
I mean, we're on the exact same page there. I say it often. I want every child growing up in this state and all across this country to at least have the same opportunities that I had.
Yeah, I mean, it's time, and this is why we need people like you in the Senate. I hope folks will go to mandelabarnes.com and check out the website, and hopefully donate, because these campaigns are expensive, especially when you're going up against someone who has seen his wealth quadruple over his time in the Senate, and or double, quadruple.
He doubled his wealth, and he complained about it.
There you go.
He complained that it didn't quadruple.
Oh, okay. While people are losing their homes and people are struggling to make ends meet, he's worrying about his millions. Not okay. I got it. So Labor Day coming up. What's the message from Mandela Barnes on Labor Day?
Well, the message on Labor Day is the same as it is every day. Wisconsin is a very working class state. This is about rebuilding that middle class that gave me opportunity, regardless of where we go in this state, regardless of what community. We all want the same things. We want good schools to send our children to. We want health care that lets us go to the doctor without worrying about a surprise bill, and a good paying job that allows us to put food on the table. We deserve better, and people are ready to fight for it. People are ready to organize for better, because Ron Johnson has left us behind for far too long. The idea that Wisconsin used to supply the entire world effectively is a reality that most people know that we can actually achieve again. We've done some remarkable things in the state, especially when it comes to supporting working people and providing that sort of opportunity. But it has been out of touch politicians that has let those opportunities slip through their fingers. And we need people with real working class experience in the United States Senate who are going to show up. We're going to continue to fight every single day to help improve quality of life for working folks all across this country. Yeah, it's sadly people like Ron Johnson who have taken the forward state backwards. And speaking of backwards, on this Labor Day, I saw a report that Ron Johnson has an innovative way to lower wages and help destroy Social Security, which has been a Republican want for a very long time. Evidently, he and
Graham Leach Bliley brainchild Phil Graham have come together on this innovative idea, I guess, to coax seniors out of retirement. And the idea, they don't have to pay payroll tax, they don't have to do any of that, so no money going into Social Security, and we're going to lower wages by more people going into the workforce. This is, for Ron Johnson, an innovative idea to help business.
Well, that's what's so frustrating about it is that, the things that truly, truly tear at the fabric of, what gave me opportunity, what gave you opportunity, the idea that, what made Wisconsin such a strong state in the first place, creating an example for the rest of the country for that matter. You got a person like Ron Johnson who wants to tear that down. And this is my life. This is beyond politics. My granddad moved to Milwaukee after World War II. Like I said, he got a job as a union steelworker at A.O. Smith. Walked in one day, walked out 35 years later, was able to retire with benefits that he earned. He laid a foundation. So when you hear people like Ron Johnson attack Social Security, I think about my grandfather. I think about all the other grandparents out there, even my own dad, who was able to retire after 30 years on that assembly line. He put his body on the line, still dealing with carpal tunnel. And he and everyone else across this country deserves the benefits that they have paid into and worked hard for their entire lives. And Ron Johnson could not have a more out of touch position on this issue. He has no right to take these benefits that people worked hard for. And that's why I'm running for the Senate, to work to shore up Social Security, to ensure that every person has a fair shot to work hard, to achieve success, and retire with the benefits that they earned. And this also means making sure that wealthy Americans pay their fair share to keep the system strong.
There you go. So last line of questioning I've got for you, because ultimately when you're senator, you got to carry an agenda, and I'm hoping that agenda is a solidly pro-labor one, just judging from your background. But our laws are broken, Mandela. You know it. I know it. People who are organizing right now are struggling unnecessarily. How do we streamline the process to get the 60 million people who would want to join a union tomorrow to be able to do so? The 71% of people who are in favor of unions to be able to join and form unions to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions. How do we push policy and pass laws to get that done?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because here in Wisconsin, we saw the state level destruction by Scott Walker.
Yeah, I was there. I was sleeping on your Capitol floor.
Seriously, I mean, the outright attack on working people, right? And it's not just here. It happened in other states. It was almost a domino effect after Wisconsin. And that's why we need federal laws on the books to make it easier for people to be able to make their voices heard in the workplace, so that people can have safe environments and get paid what they are worth. And that starts with passing the PRO Act. I mean, that is the base level. That's where we need to start. We need to do everything we can, strengthen Davis-Bacon. We need to make sure that working people have a say-so.
It's that simple. Mandela, I appreciate you taking time for us. I hope you'll come back and share some more as this campaign continues. I wish you the best. I hope folks will go to mandelabarnes.com, find out how you can help out, especially for our listeners in Wisconsin. Get out there, knock doors, make phone calls, and also make donations, because when you're taking on somebody as wealthy as Ron Johnson and with all of his billionaire backers and corporate special interests lining his pockets, working people need a champion, need a fighter. Mandela, I appreciate the time.
Hey, I appreciate you. Good to see you.
Good stuff. Thanks so much. Again, mandelabarnes.com, the website. Check that out. We'll take a quick break. Right back. When we come back, Labor Secretary Marty Walsh is going to be here to share some thoughts. Back after this.
It was 1910. That was the day the Protocol of Peace brought an end to the cloakmakers' strike in New York City. The garment industry had been rocked by the uprising of 20,000 months earlier. Young women had struck hundreds of small shops over pay, recognition, and working conditions. They won ILGWU recognition in all but a handful of shops. 60,000 cloakmakers in the city were inspired to walk out of the sweatshops that July. The mostly male strike force demanded shorter hours and increased pay, the closed shop, and more. Union membership soared, and most of the small shops caved. The larger manufacturers would not, however, and by the end of the summer, the protocol of peace was negotiated. Future Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis figured prominently in the negotiations. The protocol established higher wages, shorter hours, and overtime pay. It also guaranteed the union shop, elimination of contracting, and monitoring of piecework rates. Even more significant, workers won a union health center, a board of sanitary control, a board of grievances, and a board of arbitration. For the first time, garment workers had access to health care, a way to eliminate sweatshop conditions, and a way to mediate and resolve shop floor complaints. The price to be paid, however, was that workers would give up their most powerful leveraging tool, the right to strike. The agreement was lauded as a step forward for industrial democracy. But soon, many workers complained that the protocol failed to answer a number of shop floor issues. Grievances piled up, and workers were penalized when they attempted to strike to resolve their problems. The protocol would be scrapped for a return to militant strikes during the 1920s. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Here's a hot topic for Labor Day: heat. It's been a hell of a hot summer, exploding the top off thermometers with triple-digit readings across the country. As we're learning, week after week of this debilitating heat intensifies wildfires, causes electric grids to fail, kills millions of wild animals, including fish, burns up crops, and concentrates toxic air. But there's another impact that draws little notice. Heat kills workers. Indeed, searing days of 95, 100, 110 degrees are killing and injuring more U.S. workers each year than all the floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes combined. Those toiling outdoors, including farm workers, roofers and carpenters, airport ground crews, landscapers, road and street repairers, letter carriers, and trash collectors, are in the direct line of fire for this invisible, insidious killer. But working indoors is no better if there's no AC, for metal and stone warehouses and manufacturing plants become ovens. Then, welcome to climate change. 20 of the last 21 years gave us the hottest temperatures on record. Unsurprisingly, the yearly number of worker heat deaths in that period doubled. Also, researchers have determined that extreme workplace heat is causing about 170,000 people a year to suffer injuries on the job. The impact of heat is poorly understood, even by workers. A sudden heat stroke is not the only worry, for rising body temperatures can quickly fuzz the mind, weaken muscles, numb concentration. So workers fall, their hands get caught in machinery, they touch the wrong wire, etc. This is Jim Hightower saying America's power elites literally don't feel the intensity of this heat. So the richest country in the history of the world continues to subject millions of its people to senseless suffering and death, not even talking about this embarrassment, much less stopping it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as we head into Labor Day weekend, Labor's never been more popular. And if you look at the most recent Gallup poll out, Labor's approval rating, what is it, 71%? And when you look at the younger population, even more popular than the 71% number, which is incredible. The question is why is it that in the private sector only about 6% of workers are in unions right now? Here to answer some of those questions and maybe talk about, well, this upcoming holiday, I've asked our good friend Labor Secretary Marty Walsh to come share some thoughts. Secretary Walsh, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me today, I should say, and happy Labor Day weekend to everyone who's listening and watching.
So, I talk about often on the program how I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland, and the struggles of growing up poor, the struggles of that kind of an existence, and how when someone in the neighborhood got a union job, back in the 70s at the Ford plant or the Chevy plant or one of the feeder plants, their lives got better immediately. Food at the end of the month, secondhand bikes, better clothes, eventually moving out, those kind of things. And you share somewhat of a similar background, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a neighborhood in Boston, Dorchester, and I grew up in a 3-family house, and my parents immigrated from Ireland to America. My father came out in 1956. My mother came out in 1959. They met here, and I talk about the opportunity for my father to join a union, which allowed us the opportunity to live the American dream. We weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but there was, most times it was construction was a little different. Most times it was a decent, steady income coming in. Difficult times in construction. Sometimes you get laid off and you don't have that steady income, but over time, the dignity of having a union and what comes with the union, healthcare benefits, eventually a pension, annuity, all of that stuff. So my father and mother were able to live with dignity and respect. And as you just mentioned, a lot of families, when they get that opportunity to join a union and join a labor movement and a company with a union, because companies a lot of times with unions respect their workers a little differently than other people do, because they might have their battles during the contract negotiation, but at the end of the day, it's a partnership. And I think what we're seeing in the country right now is a lot of people wanting to become part of a union, and we've seen the applications at the NLRB go up 58% this year so far. We have more applications for an election right now than any time last year, complete the whole year together. So there's definitely a resurgence in the labor movement to some degree. And quite honestly, I think it's younger people that are excited about the opportunity of collective power. And when I mean collective power, it's not just about wages, but it's about respect in the workplace. It's about dignity. It's about work conditions, all of that stuff. That's what I'm seeing when I talk to young people.
Yeah, no, it's about what I talk about all the time here on the program, this sense of empowerment. I've always had a union job. I've been very fortunate in my working life to have always had a good union job, that I've felt that kind of empowerment in the workplace and also in society as a whole. And I think that's something that's contagious. Once you get a taste for it, it's something that grows. And I think the younger generation watched their parents kind of take a beating over the last couple of decades, and they're not going to have it.
No, it's true. I mean, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of these workers. The president had a meeting at the White House one day, and we talked with Starbucks workers, Amazon workers, REI workers. There was workers from the Baltimore Public Library. And what I found amazing was when they all talked about forming a union, none of them talked about wages. They all talked about work conditions. They talked about, time off. They talked about all of that stuff. And I thought it was really interesting that this real wave in the movement, when the labor movement started, as in the beginning of the, late 19th century to 20th century, it was about work conditions and the way people were being treated and paid. And you fast forward 100 plus years later, this type of resurgence of the labor movement, it's some of it's on the same basic fundamentals of making sure that you have good, strong, work conditions in your place of employment. And I think that we'll see what happens now over the course of next year. But I think the labor movement, organized labor, has a real opportunity in front of it. They have a President Biden, that's very pro-labor, pro-union, probably the most pro-union president we've ever had in the history of our country. And it's really important for them to understand this moment in time. And then also companies, a lot of companies are resisting organized labor right now. And what I try to tell companies that will talk to me about this is that, there's a real desire for unions to work collectively with companies, and that companies be successful. Because if companies aren't successful, then they're not going to hire people. So labor has a vested interest in making sure as they organize these workplaces and these companies, that these companies continue to be successful, if not even get bigger. Yep. Because there's an opportunity there to represent the members and collectively work together on the goal of whatever the company might be.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I want the company I work for to be as wildly profitable as they can possibly be, so that come contract negotiation time, I can grab some of that profit for myself and for my coworkers as well. Yeah. That's kind of the whole process, isn't it?
It really is, and it's all, it's about that. And I think that what companies are seeing in the private sector today that might not be organized, they're paying their employees more. And people aren't sticking by. They're going to a better job, and there's opportunities out there today. And companies in the past, you'd go to work for a company, you might do 20, 30, 40 years there. That's not the case today. And we started to see the change with millennials, where millennials weren't connected to a company for their entire career. And the next generation of young people, it's the same way. The young people graduate in college today, that there's a good chance that they're gonna have, by the time they're 20 years in the workforce, they're going to work for 10 different companies. Unless companies, but that's not good for companies. Unless companies can figure out, how do you recruit and retain talented people? And organized labor can be one of those ways to recruit and retain people in your workforce.
Yeah, no, I worked for a company for 20 years, and they used to brag at the fact that they only had a 1% turnover rate. That they were able to retain good quality people, and that's how they were able to be profitable. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Marty Walsh. He's the Secretary of Labor. But here's the thing, Marty. You look at the reality. You hear these polls out there, and 71% of the people approve. 60 million people would join a union tomorrow if they could. I don't think most people know, how to begin. And I know that you, as head of the Department of Labor, are in the process of moving towards a one-stop shop of information on getting resources to get people that knowledge to maybe move in that direction, because that's kind of your gig, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we're going to go live on the website with Know Your Rights campaign. People who have interest in unions will be able to join on and see how to join a union. And there's a place for the labor movement as well, the AFL-CIO and the unions to go out there and to not just talk about unionism, but help people be able to access those unions. And I think that there's, that's not the goal, the responsibility of the federal government. Even me as a labor secretary that's a union member, I don't sign people up for unions. That's going to be the organized labor's role. But what we are going to do is explain to people what their rights are and allow them the opportunity. If they have a question about unions, they come to the website, look at the website, and then it's going to be, it's going to be up to organized labor and different unions to go out and organize and make connections to folks.
No, I mean, what's interesting is this is, as you've tweeted out, this is the first ever worker organizing research and knowledge center. And I'm going, the Department of Labor has been around for decades. Why now is this the first time that this is being put together? And good on you for doing it. And thank you and good on you. But why is this the first time this is happening?
Because it's the first time in history we have a president that truly believes in the labor movement, that completely believes in the entire labor movement, President Biden. And President Biden feels that people should have the right to free right to join a union if they choose. And he's encouraged companies that if members decide to sign those pledge cards and have a vote to form a union, he asks them to respect that right. And I think that you have an administration that understands and values the respect of the middle class. When you think about the pandemic, this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I answer a lot of questions about quitting and quit rates and jumping jobs and people not going back to work and understaffed companies. And if you look at the numbers don't lie. You look at companies that have union members in them that are organized, they're not having problem recruiting and retaining people. They're not having problems with people quitting their job and going to other jobs. The reason for it is because the workers feel respected. They usually have a pension plan or a strong 401k. They have health care. They have work conditions that they're able to have a conversation with their employer through the process set up. So again, I think that there's something to be said that a lot of people are watching and saying, wait a second, and you mentioned this yourself, the union worker is doing okay because, they might not start out with a roof owning their own home, but they have an opportunity at some point to buy their own home. They have an opportunity to put food on the table. They have an opportunity to retire with dignity. I think people are looking at that saying, wait a second, there's something there. And having some collective power through collective bargaining, it's a good way to go through life as far as an employee. And I think that, all of these different factors are coming together at this moment in time, not due to the pandemic, but the pandemic really caused a lot of concern in individuals in their life, and work-life balance is another one. So I think this right now, you have a president that, he talks about the middle class being built and unions building the middle class, that how important that is, that truly that labor membership is a ticket into the middle class.
Yeah. Now you brought up the pandemic and look, a lot of people coming out of the pandemic, internalize that, essential worker title, that frontline hero title, that patriotic kind of pat on the back we gave them for showing up and doing their job. And now that we've kind of gotten away from it a little bit, I think they want that respect that came from that. And then that comes with wages, that comes with hours, that comes with working conditions. I know that you're in the process of honoring those workers at the Labor Department's Labor Hall of Honor, and I think this is the right thing to do. Because we had nurses, we had bus drivers, we had grocery cashiers, we had meat packers, we had all these workers who we called essential. They were frontline heroes, and they got us through the pandemic. And sadly, they've been relegated almost to the back again. I think helping this not a bad idea.
Well, that's expected. I mean, unfortunately, I think we know, and I know that folks that are working in those different jobs are essential all the time. They're essential during snowstorms. They're essential during hurricanes. They're essential during tornadoes. They're essential during natural disasters. They always go to work. And during the pandemic, they went to work every day. And in the early days, there was no PPE. They didn't have masks. They didn't understand. None of us really understood what the magnitude of COVID was. But yeah, on Thursday, we honored the essential employee, and we put them in the Hall of Honor here at the Department of Labor. We have a wall downstairs, and there's been some great Americans on that wall that have done tremendous contributions to organized labor and to labor as a whole. There's a few names on there that I'm not sure what their contributions were, but they have before me, so I'll just leave it at that. But it is something that we wanted to honor them last year, and we verbally honored them, but we were still in the midst of COVID, and the numbers were spiking this time last year. So Thursday, we had an event at the Department of Labor where hundreds of people came in, including a lot of essential workers, and I had the opportunity to thank them for their great work, and they'll be forever enshrined here at the Department of Labor, and when we get normal times where people will be out visiting again, people will come by this building and get a chance to see that recognition on the Hall of Honor, and as a labor person, that's quite an honor, I think, in my opinion. And then also, I think we can never forget them. You're absolutely right. We can't forget them. And every time you go to the grocery store or go to a coffee shop or wherever you go, you just remember that workers, in a freezing cold morning, that worker's going to be there. In a very hot afternoon, that worker's going to be there, and they've been there for us forever.
Yeah, now I got to ask you, and I know you got to get going real soon, but I got to get to this. California just passed a bill that I'm hoping Governor Newsom will sign. That'll give 550,000 fast food workers an opportunity to do something fairly unique in this country that we don't do, this idea of sectorial bargaining. I'm curious your thoughts on what they're doing out there.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I know I've got a lot of calls on it. A lot of people are supporting it. I'm not sure what's going to happen at the end of the day, but I think that anytime that I certainly support anytime we can put a little more power in the hands of workers. I certainly support that. As a legislator myself in Massachusetts, I was able to accomplish that. As a mayor of the city, I was able to work with all sides and respect workers' rights and workers' ability to bargain and workers' ability to organize. So, and now as Secretary of Labor, I do the same thing. I support workers' rights. And, if a worker decides or chooses they want to join a union, we should allow them. If a worker makes a decision not to join a union, we should respect that too. I mean, let's be honest. That's how it is. And I think that's how I operate, and that's how I've always operated.
Yeah, but I'm looking at California's setup. They want to set up this commission across the fast food industry to kind of raise wages, raise conditions, and do something that I don't know that we do often in this country. I mean, I spent most of my working life under the National Master Freight Agreement in the trucking industry, which was an industry standard agreement. This is using legislation to kind of do that. This is kind of unique, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like, there's been other small pieces of legislation around the country, but this is probably the largest piece of it, of legislation like this that I've ever seen. I know in other legislatures, they do little bits and pieces of things, but this is probably very unique, groundbreaking legislation that's being considered out there in California.
Last thing, what's the Walsh family going to do for the holiday?
Well, this holiday, I'm usually home in Boston, and I usually go to the Labor Day breakfast on Monday, and there's about 1,200 people go to the breakfast, and I've always gone to that. As a legislator, as a mayor, I spoke at it every year as a mayor, and last year they didn't have it, and then this year I won't be there. I'm going to be in Cincinnati on Sunday, throwing out the first pitch at the Cincinnati Reds games with my brothers and sisters in organized labor. And then I'm going to go over to Milwaukee on Monday. I'll be in Milwaukee and Pittsburgh on Monday celebrating Labor Day. And then next weekend, I'll be in New York City as the Grand Marshal of the Labor Day Parade. So I'm pretty psyched about that. It's such an honor for me, marching in New York as the head of the Labor Department. So I'm excited about that. So no cookout really, and no hometown, no home bed this weekend. But I want to be all over the country celebrating with some great labor leaders in this country.
Well, amazing stuff, Marty. I appreciate you taking time for us. Keep up the great work you're doing there at the Department of Labor, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Thank you, and happy Labor Day to everybody.
You as well. Again, Marty Walsh, Secretary of Labor. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Yes, indeed. Lots to celebrate this Labor Day weekend. And look, I looked to California, and this Fast Food Accountability and Standards Recovery, the FAST Act is what it's called, the Fast Recovery Act, going to give the fast food industry an opportunity to put a floor under their feet. This is not a bad thing. Understand the restaurant industry, the fast food industry, not happy. No, not happy. They've had control for so long. They've had, both hands firmly, implanted on the steering wheel driving the car, that they do not, under any circumstances, want to give up control. And what that control has gotten is poor working conditions, poverty wages, and desperation for hundreds of thousands of workers, not just in California but across the country. They've abused that privilege. And this is one of those moments where you go, well, now it's time for we the people to step in. What I find interesting, and this is another one of those moments where you get people go, well, those jobs are just jobs for people who get their first job. They're just teenagers. Some of the stories I've heard from people who have spent their entire lives working in this industry, and you can say what you want about people who make a career of this. I believe that these jobs deserve the dignity and respect of a living wage. Every job is deserving of dignity and respect. Whether it is a job that teenagers start out at, it's not solely that. Yeah, even when I remember going back to high school, and again, I think about, one of the first jobs I had was working in a fast food restaurant, and I hated it. It was horrible. It was probably one of the most difficult jobs I've ever had, dealing with the heat, dealing with the being burned by the damn fryer, being, just miserable, having to, rush around crazy, and then dealing with the people. I mean, that was literally the worst part of it. And this is one of those things where, I hear these stories from people all the time. And I remember thinking back as a 17-year-old going, I can't imagine these people who are in their 30s and 40s who are working here, who this is their job, this is their livelihood, this is their life. They have to put up with this. And I tell my kids, the story of how I got fired from that job. Because ultimately, I'm sure you know me. I'm clearly not cut out for customer service. A woman came back after,
consuming more than half of everything that she had ordered, and then complained about it and said she wanted her money back. And I said, no, we'll be happy to give you something else if you're not happy with this. And no, and so it just came to this back and forth. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's not my rule. I'm not making this up. This is what they told me I have to say. I'm 17. What do you want? So she got mad and she took what was left of the French fries with all the ketchup on it and she threw it at me, which then made me very angry. And I picked up the Frosty that was on the counter and I threw it back at her. And, well, clearly that was not the right way to deal with a customer service problem. And I now, as I'm a little bit older, I now realize that was probably not the right way to handle that. But in the moment, and being 17 and not giving a you-know-what about that job, because I had my whole life ahead of me, that seemed like the right choice. Seemed like a good choice to me. And it makes, all these years later, it makes a good story. But here's the thing. I think about, what if that was my reality? What if I was 35 years old and I have a child at home and rent to pay and some, a loved one with health problems? You go down the list of what ifs. I now have to endure not only dangerous working conditions and an overbearing boss with unpredictable hours and, just all of that. I now have to put up with that under no circumstances. And so I look at this council that they want, this fast food sector council that they are going to set up if and when the governor of California signs this, as a good thing, to set a floor beneath everyone's feet so that all of the fast food industry plays by the same rules on scheduling, on working conditions, on treatment of workers, all of those things that a union would do. But we've allowed our labor laws to get so broken in this country and to be so splintered and disjointed that it's damn near impossible to organize the fast food industry because they've insulated themselves with these franchise agreements. So the big Golden Arch place, you can't organize the Golden Arches. The girl with the pigtails, can't organize that. The guy walking around with the plastic crown, you can't organize all of them. You got to go place by place by place, which is impossible to do. So this is the best alternative, to say this industry, this entire sector, we're going to set some rules. And you're going to compete based on this being the rules of the game. This is fair. And it's something that the industry should want, because they should want their competition not to be on low road employment, but on best quality, on best service. That seems to me, and as consumers, that's what we should want. That's what we should be pushing and fighting for. Instead of having a system set up where we've got people living in homeless shelters, serving us food, taking baths in sinks, or if at all, maybe we should pay them a living wage. Now, in other countries, I know we can't look abroad because we're number one, we're better. Those jobs, again, respectable, dignified, and in ways that people can earn a living. Now, are they living on Madison Avenue or Park Avenue? Are they living high off the... No, but they're making a living. And for me, this is one of those moments. On Labor Day weekend, we should be fighting to make sure that every job, no matter what it is you do for a living, is worthy of that dignity and respect, is worthy of that ability to have dignity in what you do and pride in what you do. That's the amazing thing. Every one of these people I talk to, they have pride in what they do. Even if you don't. And this is why I think it's a good thing, and I call on Governor Newsom to absolutely, without question, sign the Fast Recovery Act. If you missed any of the program, make sure you download the podcast at thericksmithshow.com.
Small green plants line the bed of what used to be a frontier lake between Switzerland and France. It's existed for 12,000 years, but now it's relegated to just a small stream.
More than half of Europe mired in worst drought in centuries. Climate change action is way more popular than Americans realize. Plus,
a country famed for its oil resources, committed to going to sustainable mobility.
Saudi Arabia pushes to become a global electric vehicle leader.
Really?
Yes.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
There is no climate crisis. It is a hoax, and fossil fuels are a wonderful thing.
It is 2022, and that is Virginia Congressman Bob Good. Hey, Virginia voters, it's 2022. Can you please vote that guy the hell out of office? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, from heat and drought in the U.S. to heat and drought in China. Now we're back to heat and drought in Europe.
Yes, unfortunately, more than half of Europe is mired in drought. According to a new report from the European Commission, 64% of the continent is in severe or exceptional drought, the highest category, and it is the worst drought in at least 500 years, and likely more. The combination of record heat and drought has triggered water shortages across Europe and is contributing to a widespread increase in fire danger across the EU. Drought, heat, and fires are all worsened by man-made climate change.
Yep, they are.
Here in the U.S., new projections from NOAA hold a warning for coastal communities that are seeing flooding on sunny days at high tide.
You mean like Florida?
Yes.
Then I'm sure they'll ignore it.
NOAA's latest outlook predicts that sunny day flooding, which today occurs on average nationally about once every 2 months or so at any given spot, could hit as frequently as every other day by 2050. That's within the lifetime of a traditional 30-year mortgage originating today. New Jersey is crafting new regulations to restrict development in coastal flood zones based on future climate projections, not past flood data.
Good.
By 2150, sea levels in Jersey are projected to be 5 to 19 feet higher than today.
Don't tell Florida.
A disturbing new study finds that living near natural gas fracking wells increases the risk of childhood leukemia. Researchers at Yale School of Public Health found that children in Pennsylvania who grew up roughly within a mile of a fracking well are twice as likely as other young people to develop juvenile leukemia. But some good news. New modeling shows that Democrats' newly enacted landmark climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, will not only save consumers money and lower energy costs, but will also deliver massive benefits and cost savings for public health. By reducing fossil fuel air pollution, the law will prevent up to 4,500 premature deaths every year by 2030 and hundreds of thousands of asthma attacks, with the biggest gains in communities of color that are disproportionately burdened by industrial pollution.
Well, that is good news.
In other news, a new survey finds that climate action is far more popular than people in the U.S. realize.
Is it?
2/3 of Americans support government climate action, but everyone is underestimating how much other people support climate policies, incorrectly believing that their neighbors don't support action. The researchers found this false perception occurs across all states and demographic groups. Even Democrats don't know that climate policy is very popular.
And why don't Democrats even know that?
The researchers at Boston College partially link it to decades of right-wing media demonizing climate policy.
Go figure.
And it matters, because when people assume something isn't popular, they don't talk about it, leading to what the researchers called, quote, a spiral of silence that helps obscure the deep, widespread support for climate protection measures across the board.
Of course, they don't talk about it. They think others don't agree with them, and they're afraid to speak up about it.
Finally, big moves in electric vehicles. Saudi Arabia has launched a major initiative to become a big player in the global electric vehicle sector, investing billions to develop a domestic minerals mining industry and an EV manufacturing and processing supply chain for batteries and cars. Bloomberg News reports that the petro-state hopes other countries will swap out their dependence on Saudi oil for dependence on Saudi battery materials, a sector that China currently dominates.
Chalk me up as dubious. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, Labor Day weekend, labor history kind of important. The stories of working people, I think, this weekend kind of important. Remembering how we got the 8-hour day, the weekend, how we were able to build the most prosperous working class in the history of civilization, the struggles of working people, not just the ones that we like to remember nicely, but all working people, women, people of color, everyone, how it took to get here. And also remember making that commitment tomorrow to wake up and continue to strive for a more prosperous working class, to fight for better wages, hours, conditions for everyone. And here to share some thoughts on how we get to that world and maybe remember some of the past. I've asked Dr. Melissa Ford to come talk with us. She's an associate professor of history at Slippery Rock University. She's got a book out, A Brick and a Bible, Black Women's Radical Activism in the Midwest During the Great Depression. That is a Southern Illinois University Press book. We'll get links out on social media how you can pick that up. Melissa, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So it is the holiday for workers. Sadly for too many, it's the last holiday of the summer, last time they have a barbecue, that stuff. But for me, it's kind of like a sacred holiday. This is what, how we got the 8-hour day, how we fight for dignity and respect, how we ensure that workers get, a fair shake.
It is. And I think the big thing that kind of irks me about Labor Day, and as a labor historian, is that so many other holidays we say it's like, oh, it's a time to set our differences aside and come together and think about, if it's MLK Day, we think about the civil rights movement, racial justice. If it's 4th of July, we think about democracy. If it's Thanksgiving, we think about what we're thankful for. For Labor Day, nobody sits down and says, let's think about the workers who risked their lives to have a better future for their children and children's children. Nobody thinks about, the mill workers or the children who have their fingers being caught in machines, or even before that, if you and rapidly expanding definitions of workers in American history, thinking about enslaved people and just the backs on which this country was built.
Right.
And that's what we should do on Labor Day. The barbecues are great, but can't we take a moment to appreciate the working class, which I think is a real missed opportunity.
No, and that's why every year that we've been doing this program, I say take those couple of minutes and think about what you have and what was given to you by the generations before you who fought, bled, and died for the 8-hour day, for the things that we take for granted and that sadly have been easily traded away. And maybe spend a couple minutes listening to our labor history in 2 segments, which you go to thericksmithshow.com. Right there, we've got years worth of those for people to take advantage of, because I don't think we've done enough to teach people the history of what it took, for all of the struggles and all of the battles to get what we've taken for granted.
I agree, and that labor history segment is great. It is historian, professor approved. So there you go.
That's what I want to hear. And our good friends at the Illinois Labor History Society, they, in conjunction with the program here, did a fabulous job, and we love the work that we've been able to put into this. But again, you look at this holiday. It's also the wrong time of year. I have my labor purists who say, no, the real Labor Day is May 1st. May 1st. Melissa, it's yes. May Day. And I go, yes, we can have 2 holidays. We should have one. Every day should be Workers' Day, but we should take what we get and we should expand on that. Take the win.
I think so. Although I do think it's getting massively away from the original intent, but what is not when it comes to working class people. So
Right, so let's do that. Let's
Yeah.
give people the ability to say, oh, hey, you know what? I heard Melissa Ford talk about her book, A Brick and a Bible. Let's talk about Melissa Ford's book. What made you write this?
Well, I'm from St. Louis. I am also come from a background of privilege. Born in the suburbs, white girl, went to private schools, and I thought I knew St. Louis history. I thought I knew everything there was to know about my city, right? And then when I went to grad school, I was given the assignment to write a paper about something local. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just poke around and see what's there. And the more I read, the more I was just shocked by how much of St. Louis history that I didn't know. And particularly, there's this one strike in 1933 that was led by Black women in alliance with communists. And I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, there are communists in St. Louis. Second of all, there was a strike. Third of all, it's in the middle of the Great Depression. And so I began, digging and finding that these types of radical activism among Black women in the working class wasn't just in St. Louis. It was in Cleveland. It was in Detroit. It was in Chicago. And so there's something happening in the Midwest that is compelling these women to join forces with the communists, who are not the most popular people in the world, but join forces with the communists and stage strikes, have community organizing. They're doing welfare checks. They're protesting evictions. They're putting families back into their houses. It's an enormous moment of radicalism in American history that we completely overlook.
Well, it's not that we overlook it, Melissa. I would say we've been force-fed other stuff so as not to focus on that, so that we don't know that that's possible. So the next time these horrible things happen, we don't pull back at that and go, oh, hey, maybe this is what we should be doing, like we were supposed to be doing in 2009 when they were kicking people from their homes and taking people's, their wealth as the economy was collapsing and kicking people to the curb. I think, or maybe, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Because we study history so we don't repeat it, right? Okay, that's in theory. If we did study the 1930s and learn from the economic degradation, then we would learn that interracial solidarity of the working class is a way to fight against the capitalist oppression, right? And that was the message that these Black women were rallying around, because they had always been affected as Black working class women in a variety of ways against social oppressions. And so when the communists came in and said, hey, let's work together, let's have this working class solidarity, it gave birth to what is known as the heyday of American communism and radicalism. But you're right, because it's a history that those in power don't want us to learn, to remember, to see that potential of solidarity.
And that's the word right there, is solidarity, because, the wealth class has always understood, and I say this all the time, they've always understood how to divide, how to slice and dice and pit us against each other, white, black, male, female, gay, straight, what ethnicity galore, blonde hair, brown hair. They'll figure out a way to divide so that we're eating each other, so that we're not going after them.
Right. Absolutely. And the thing is, the tactics they try today, tactics they tried in 2009 and 80s and the 60s, 50s, 30s, they're all the same old tactics. It's, red baiting or trying to, trying to pit African-American communities against each other. You have the working class versus the middle class. And all these sort of issues that are still with us, obviously, today, but we can find that history in the 1930s as well.
So in looking at the book, A Brick and a Bible, Black women's radical activism in the Midwest during the Great Depression, which I hope folks will pick up. Again, we'll get links out on social media, how you can find that. What's the message coming out of this? What do you want people to take from this? What's the message?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, the stories. These are women who have never been treated seriously in academic settings before because they are working class Black women. And that's obviously a fault of historians, but also just the way in which we think about working class struggles in American history. And so first is to know these stories. And if it's okay, could I tell a story real quick?
Absolutely, by all means.
All right. So A Brick and a Bible, you're probably wondering about the name. It comes from the strike in 1933. Carrie Smith is a middle-aged Black woman. She's migrant from Mississippi. She has come to St. Louis. She's worked at a nut picking factory for 17 years. And so she sits at these dark, huge rooms. She's lighting is off. It's drafty. It's horrible. She's picking nut meat. So nuts from pecans to separate the shells from the nut meat. And then they sell the meat. So anyway, it's the middle of the Great Depression. She's just lost her pay has plummeted, right? And so when she's approached by communists in St. Louis to say, hey, we will help rally you, we will help organize, she's like, hell yeah, I'm in. And so she becomes the leader of the strike, this middle-aged Black woman who goes to church every day, who's never done like any radical activism before, becomes a leader of a strike of over 1,000 Black women in 1933. And at one point, she's at a rally in front of City Hall, and the story goes, she's holding a Bible in one hand and a brick in the other, and she says, girls, we have to stick together. We cannot lose. And so there's this momentous occasion where it's that rallying out of complacency but also harnessing what Black women have always known in terms of working for themselves under these capitalist, sexist, racist oppression. And so this image of her with a brick and a Bible really stuck with me. And so that's what I would like people to get out of it. A brick and a Bible is, you have this brick, you have that working class enthusiasm, that working class solidarity, but you have a Bible, you have bigger messages to move.
Yeah, and the strength. And the message for today, I would argue, is because there is a message for today, is that workers can have the same kind of solidarity and strength and should.
Absolutely. And it's not just specifically within unions and jobs, radical activism, but if we think about things like Ferguson and Minneapolis with George Floyd, these moments of Black radical unrest also stem from the working class, which then leads into kind of this it's a momentum, a movement that is a uniquely political movement for Black radicalism. So if you think about Cori Bush, who came from the Ferguson protests, is now a representative from Missouri. If you think about the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement on many local levels are Black women. And so to find that link more closely between race and class here is something that's, developing over centuries and centuries, and scholars are still, we're still working on it because there's no answer. But to highlight the 1930s as being as relevant 90 years later is part of the job of labor historians, I think.
No, and that's the job of folks like you, obviously, and these kind of books, and the reason why we read these books to learn from the past and maybe take some of the maybe repeat some of the past. Because they say you don't want history to repeat itself. Maybe sometimes you do.
I mean, they won their strike. They won their demands in 1933. It was a small victory, but there were some moments of victory in the Great Depression. So yeah, it's within those moments we find inspiration.
So last line of questioning I've got for you, because in this moment I know there are some people out there, especially my red hat wearing friends, who are scared to death of the idea of Black women or Black folks in general, or anyone in general, organizing. Because Black Lives Matter, you listen to my MAGA friends, they're losing their minds every day because Antifa's coming for them. Why shouldn't they be afraid? Why shouldn't this scare them to death?
If you're looking at the things these Black Lives Matter protesters are asking, none of it should be labeled radical. It's fundamental. And the most ardent voices are not calling for violence, are not calling for not calling for a revolution in the streets. They're calling for a revolution of thought, a revolution of how we think about the working class, power, economics, and capitalism. And this is not a violent uprising as much as the media would want you to see or want you to think. Instead, it is a revolutionary thought process about we need to rethink the way we see society. And so it's the only thing that's in danger is their longstanding beliefs. And perhaps that's even more dangerous than their own
but their windows broken. I've heard, and someone told me that their cars that were caught on fire, and I get this all the time. That's violent uprising it's not what you're saying.
Right. Well, I mean that's how it's often framed, by especially with social media and a lot of other factors of how. Oh man, I'm not a media professor, so I don't want to go into that or communications. But just like I think we all know, it's like they do it to sell newspapers or get clicks, and violence will sell. That's always
and to keep people divided.
Always.
Look, if the reality is, if we learned anything from labor's history, is that if we can keep people divided, if we can use blacks to break strikes, and we can use whites to break black strikes, if we can keep people divided, we can keep them from going after the people who control the factors of production, and we can keep them from going after the wealthy. We can keep them divided at the ballot box. We can keep them from a fair tax code and a fair economy. We know that, and that really, for me, is the simple message. That's the common denominator of why, whatever your prejudices are, you put those aside, because we understand that together we're stronger than we are divided.
Right. Absolutely. And that's not a new message. And it's discouraging as a historian to see people be like, well, we can never do it, or looking at Amazon and Starbucks workers organizing and be like, oh, they'll never do it, they'll never come together, and be like, no, we have in the past, and it has worked, and it is how we are where we are today, but that doesn't mean we can't continue moving forward. And I think that's one of the best things about being a historian, is to see the struggles of the past and their successes, but then also the most frustrating parts is to see history kind of stagnate.
Now, look, if the miners of the 1910s, 20s, if they're willing to go on strike and fight for better wages, hours, and conditions, when literally companies were dropping bombs on them and shooting them dead in tents, if auto workers in the 30s were willing to go on strike when they were beaten with clubs, if chocolate workers here in Hershey, Pennsylvania were willing to strike in the 30s while being beaten with clubs by farmers, we can organize Amazon workers. I think we can do that today. I'm pretty certain of it.
I think that's the hope, and that's how we try to think about our work as being relevant.
There you go. The book, again, A Brick and a Bible, Black Women's Radical Activism in the Midwest During the Great Depression, written by Melissa Ford, Ph.D., Associate Professor of History there at Slippery Rock University. We shall get links out on social media. You can take a look at the book. Hope you'll grab it. Melissa, great talking with you. I hope you'll come back and share some thoughts with us in the near future.
I will do. Thank you so much, Rick.
Great stuff. Thanks so much. Again, make sure you check out the book. We'll get links out. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
You know, I think back, in talking with Melissa there, I think back to some of the moments in our history. And, you go to Tennessee, I think it was Grundy County, where they had the convict lease program, where they would literally they would lock black people up. For whatever petty crime they could come up with, whatever nonsense they were able to dream up on these people, and they would take, these folks and they would lock them up, and they would then lease them to a mine company to break a strike. So you'd have the white miners who were going on strike because they wanted better wages, hours, conditions. They wanted a better life. And the state of Tennessee actually had a law at the time, the convict lease program, where they would lease these convicts, oddly enough, freed slaves, for a fee. And these miners would pay, these mine companies would pay a small fee to the state. It was a nice kickback to the state government to get this cheap labor to come in and cross the picket line and break the strike. And you go, how's that possible? Well, it was a couple reasons they did it. One, obviously cheap labor. We want the cheap labor. We want the exploitable labor. We want to break the strike. But more importantly, it was to continue to stoke that division, to keep people divided. Because if you're looking at that person with a jaundiced, angry eye, if you're willing to kill that person who's taking your job, no matter what the reason is, not that they had a choice, because they were basically marched in as prisoners, as slaves, only paid for. This is a different thing. Of course, you're going to have that division. This is our history. And again, I come back to this as, in talking about race relations in this country, and I understand why the right wing is losing their mind about teaching actual history. Because, to be honest, I grew up, learning, history the way I was taught. It was, everything was roses. Everything was, the founders were fabulous and everything was great and we're the great country. And, it was all of that idealized stuff that we always do the right thing. It wasn't until I got older that, I found out what Winston Churchill said, that, Americans always do the right thing after doing everything else first. Well, it's that everything else first that we probably should be learning about. And part of that everything else first was horrible treatment of, you name the group. You name the whatever, the American Indian, the Native Americans, the slaves we brought in, every ethnic group that ever came to this country, all on down the line. It's important to learn that history so that maybe, I don't know, we're better in the future, so that we don't continue to do the same horrible things. Now understand, those divisions, those things were set up on purpose to keep the working poor divided. So that you keep showing up to those crumbing jobs, so you keep working, so that you don't end up, destitute and homeless. But never asking for too much. That history of the 30s, that organizing that went on during the Depression, that was organizing that had been laid during the teens and the 20s. That was organizing that had its roots from the Great War. It was organizing that had been going on for, even before that, from the Great Railroad Strike of 1877. I mean, this stuff builds upon itself. And we're in one of those times right now where we've lived through a lot of that. The anti-war stuff, the Occupy Wall Street stuff, obviously all the organizing that went on in 2009 around defending people being able to stay in their homes, then Occupy Wall Street and so on. Right now we're in a moment where there's a generation that's been raised on activism, and they're not taking it anymore. So what does the wealth class and the extreme right have left? Stoking racial fears. Stoking our divisions, continuing to tear us apart on our fault lines. That's all they've got left. There's nothing else, folks. And if we don't put that down, if we don't stop and look, you can be prejudiced, but put it down. Stand together when it matters. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But at some point, we got to put these fears and this anger and this hatred aside. Or we're going to continue down the same horrible path. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Love to hear your thoughts. If you miss any of the program, make sure you download the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you will find ours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman and political analyst, going to be here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. A little bit more on the Trumpkin. Maybe you'll get some thoughts on the Biden speech. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1974. That was the day that President Gerald Ford signed the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. The act was passed over growing concern about the mismanagement of private pension plans in the country. In 1963, the Studebaker Corporation closed its auto plant. Its pension plan was a mess. Nearly 7,000 workers received only 15% of their pension or nothing at all. Across the country, more and more workers were relying on private pensions. In 1960, 21.2 million workers had private pensions. By 1970, the number stood at 30 million. The funds in those pension plans had nearly tripled in that same decade to $138 billion. Ensuring the security of those pensions was essential for millions of workers and the stability of the economy. At the bill signing, President Ford explained, quote, "Dramatic growth in recent years has thrust private pension plans into a central role in determining how older Americans live in their retirement years. Yet, this same growth in pension plans has brought with it a host of new problems. Many workers have ultimately lost their benefits, even after relatively long service, because when they left jobs, they thereby gave up rights to hard-earned pension benefits. Others have sustained hardships because their companies folded with insufficient funds in the pension plan to pay promised pensions. In addition, some pension funds have been invested primarily for the benefit of the companies or plan administrators, not for the workers. It is essential to bring some order and humanity to this welter of different and sometimes inequitable retirement plans within private industry." President Ford signed the bill on Labor Day and outlined minimum standards for private pensions.
Here's a hot topic for Labor Day: heat. It's been a hell of a hot summer, exploding the top off thermometers with triple-digit readings across the country. As we're learning, week after week of this debilitating heat intensifies wildfires, causes electric grids to fail, kills millions of wild animals, including fish, burns up crops, and concentrates toxic air. But there's another impact that draws little notice. Heat kills workers. Indeed, searing days of 95, 100, 110 degrees are killing and injuring more U.S. workers each year than all the floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes combined. Those toiling outdoors, including farm workers, roofers and carpenters, airport ground crews, landscapers, road and street repairers, letter carriers, and trash collectors, are in the direct line of fire for this invisible, insidious killer. But working indoors is no better if there's no AC, for metal and stone warehouses and manufacturing plants become ovens. Then, welcome to climate change. 20 of the last 21 years gave us the hottest temperatures on record. Unsurprisingly, the yearly number of worker heat deaths in that period doubled. Also, researchers have determined that extreme workplace heat is causing about 170,000 people a year to suffer injuries on the job. The impact of heat is poorly understood, even by workers. A sudden heat stroke is not the only worry, for rising body temperatures can quickly fuzz the mind, weaken muscles, numb concentration. So workers fall, their hands get caught in machinery, they touch the wrong wire, etc. This is Jim Hightower saying America's power elites literally don't feel the intensity of this heat. So the richest country in the history of the world continues to subject millions of its people to senseless suffering and death, not even talking about this embarrassment, much less stopping it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So our quote of the day from former Attorney General Billy Barr. He said it's unprecedented for a president to take all this classified information and put it in a country club. Yeah, kind of. You think, Billy? You think that's unprecedented? He goes on to say, frankly, I'm skeptical of the claims that he declassified everything. He said, because frankly, it's highly improbable. He said, in fact, he sort of stood over scores of boxes, not really knowing what was in them, and said, I hereby declassify everything in here. He said that would be such an abuse of power, and it shows such recklessness. It's almost worse than taking the documents. And he took the documents. That's bad. I'm here again. Very strange place we are in, but here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day, and maybe judge whether it's worse to stand over and declassify everything like magic wands, or stealing is worse. I've asked our good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio Congressman, political analyst, to come share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to go with magic wands worse.
Magic wands worse?
Yep. Yeah.
Why?
Let me tell you why. Stealing the documents is one thing, but waving the magic wand and declassifying everything that we have in our stockpiles and government buildings it's not good. It's just, rather than steal a few than declassify all of it. Except certain reports,
Okay.
Aliens, I'd like to see that one.
I'd like to see the aliens. I'd like to see all the classified stuff on what got us into Iraq. That would be something.
Oh, yes. Now, that one, I'm with you. I want the names of the people that stood there before us. I wish I would have, well, they didn't say their names. They were secret people.
Yeah, there's some of that stuff that I go, that would be good. Let's do that.
Cheney, I remember Cheney was there.
Yeah, so if everything now is magically gone, and there's no more classified information anywhere, because I'm assuming that's what this magic wand stuff is, maybe we get to know that?
Well, and we also know that there has to be a paper trail, digital trail on declassification. We know that.
Yeah.
Each document where's the paper trail or digital trail on that document? This is not as complex as it's being made out to be. Now, the special master idea is one thing. I said initially what they should do, and this is what I said day one, as soon as this all happened, because I knew that the government has a problem. Yes, it was classified. Well, it was top secret. What's in it? Well, we can't tell you. Take our word for it. Now, that's a problem.
Right.
Any administration, any government, take your word for it, you got a problem. History shows that, all right? So I think, and this is what I thought should happen, I think this is a great one. So hear me out for a second on this one. You take members, 3 Ds, 3 Rs, right? And you can include Pelosi and the Republican minority leader, McCarthy. And you take senators same way. And they will sit in that room because they have classified, freedom. And they'll look at them together. And where's the documentation? When was this declassified? If you're sitting in that room and you're McCarthy and you read, oh, there's the nuclear codes. It wasn't declassified. Well, what do you think, McCarthy? You're going to walk out after the November election and say, this is up to the Justice Department.
Yeah, but this is this weird moment where in the room they're probably going to be horrified, and in the room they're probably going to agree. Yeah, and in the room they may come to an agreement, but once they get outside of that room, when the lights are on, they're going to fall right back into MAGA line world, which is why I think the president's speech last night was kind of important to call them out and say, hey, we've got some problems here.
Right. Or you have you have a quote, if you can find one, unbiased master that's there with them. I always like to include the members, some of them, because they got a problem. If it's classified, even McCarthy would have a problem. Now, again, they wouldn't do this till after the elections. But McCarthy would have a problem to go out and say, no, well, did you see the documentation where it was declassified? No, but, we can do this verbally. No, you can't. I just think it would create a box that would make people sweat pretty bad.
Have you seen the story now that they're saying that the inventory shows that there are 43 empty folders that that had classified banners on it? I mean, is there? And I guess my first question is there a box that is is pre-marked classified because maybe he just stole the wrong office supplies and didn't actually take, like classified documents? Is there like a folder set up where it's marked classified so that when you put actually something in it, it's then classified? Or do you put the documents in it and then mark it classified? Because I'm curious how you get 43 empty folders and then what was in those folders.
Right, and I don't know that they would know unless the numbers match the, let me explain this. The numbers would have to match the inventory kept. For example, each document has, whether it tells what's in there or not, each document has an attached number or a code name to it. And somewhere along the line, somebody has access to what that document is. So if there are empty folders, you'd have to look back through them, and were they folders that was for something else that was turned in, and they kept them? Why? I don't know. Souvenirs, eBay items, I don't know. That would have to be asked.
eBay. Maybe that's how he's going to get to his billions.
eBay? Well,
Some classified information on
or
eBay.
chip in with some other people to buy one. It'd be a collector's item, wouldn't it?
Yeah, presidential eBay. All right, I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's scary. But hey, there's potentially a new reason for all of this. It wasn't that Donald stole the documents. According to Jared Kushner, because I guess he was on Sky News recently, he said that it could just be a paperwork issue. It could have been just a snafu. Someone just tucked those into everything else. It was an honest mistake. Anyone could have made it, Bob.
I mean, they're going to say all kinds of things. He did say, I didn't know it was on that medium. He said that it was a paperwork issue, and I don't know. He
300.
Did it during. I think he did it during his book interview, didn't he?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
You don't get to say it's a paperwork issue and then say I declassify everything.
Right. Exactly. It was.
If it was a paperwork issue, go, oh gee, here's it all back when they asked for it months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of throwing that out there.
And he says he didn't know what Trump took or what he didn't take. He said, but right now I think we're relying on leaks to the media, which is the same thing that we've and any kind of stopped. I mean, this is you're going to hear over and over till somebody sits there and says, here's document 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's got to be verified. I mean, the judge knows what's in there. And here are the documents that did not, in fact, they weren't declassified. We know that, the following 6, 7, 8, 10 documents. And then somebody has to decide the intent and decide whether to prosecute or not, or what to do with it.
Well, let's cut to the end of this, though. I mean, are we ever going to find out what this stuff was and what the fallout and what the repercussions are? Because the question keeps coming up is, okay, we've got all these top secret documents in basically a country club where people are coming in and out of. We don't know who's been in and out of Trump's office.
Right.
Are we ever going to find out whose eyes may have been laid on this? I mean, there's a talk of a Russian asset that was maybe through there. Do we ever find out this?
No, I don't think we do. I mean, maybe not while you and I are alive. I don't think we do. Because how would you know? They would have to have kept tapes for the last 2 years, of everybody in and out of there. It's virtually an impossibility. The way I'm reading the articles, too, I think that they're alluding not to the former president yet, but they're alluding to the fact that there was maybe obstruction of justice by the attorneys. And so you start to think, okay, is that the penalty path that's going to be out here at the end? The Trump penalty path, if it's not a charge, if or when it's shown that these were not declassified and he shouldn't have had them, then it still counts for something of people having, some doubt, of those who are open-minded to this being, a non-settled case at this point in time. So you have that. I think the area where we're going to see something maybe directly to the former president or family is in Georgia, personally, is where I think That happens. This exit on this one, I don't think will go to the Justice Department doing something in the court with Trump. They may lay it out as to what they think he did, but the hairy Presidential Act, I mean, everything that's happening in our modern lifetime right now kind of goes back to where Electoral College, the Vice President's power, et cetera, goes back to where somebody needs Congress. It's not just somebody. It needs to clarify some of these things, like, big time, quickly.
Yeah, maybe a civics class would have helped us not get into this mess in the first place. Just kind of a thought. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Bob Ney, former Ohio Congressman, political analyst, going through some of the top stories of the day. I want to get your thoughts on this because I know China is near and dear to your heart. Evidently, the president's about ready to sign an executive order in the coming days that's going to limit China's ability to invest in the U.S. Also, from what I'm being told, considering an order that would target certain services like TikTok. To limit how these Chinese internet companies can collect data on we the people. Thoughts?
I think it's fantastic. Anything the president can do to strengthen our position, I think, is fantastic. The White House is moving on the chips, which is great. That's a great move. They're moving on the chips in two different directions. The president will be coming here within 9 miles of my house, my apartment up here in Newark, and I think it's great that he'll be here for the largest chip factory on earth, which is being built, and so it shows the domestic support. But also, he's taking the step to target, for security reasons, which will help with our jobs too. For security reasons, China and the chips, and then other types of activity that they're doing. I think everything he's doing is great. I was a little worried that his advisors, some of them were saying, well, we need to kind of back off. But he hasn't done that, and I think it's a very good thing.
No, I think
it helps strengthen us.
Yeah, on the industrial policy front, I mean, this is where every one of those MAGA hat-wearing Republicans should be thrilled that we're doing, actually in the doing process of what they believe Trump was saying during his 4 years. We're actually bringing those manufacturing jobs back. They're actually building new facilities. There are announcements every day. And look, I'm not a huge cheerleader for corporate America, but smart policy is moving us back in a direction to making Made in America again. The cool thing and the policy thing.
Well, you always say about the capitalistic system and how it works, and when it's ready to do this and that. And if we look at the trade, we gave, and I didn't vote for it, and we fought it, but we gave them, the government, permanent trade status. So we gave a green light, telling the company, China's got what it wants, go ahead and go over there. They're set for decades. And through a bizarre turn of events, first of all, giving credit to Trump, he was the first modern-day president that complained about China, and actually, when the election ended, was doing things. And Biden has followed that. He's the other modern-day president to do this. And I think that it's been great because when the companies got the green light, they took it, and they cared about profits. All they cared about. They didn't care about human rights in China or making their lives better through unionization or rights of workers. And they surely didn't care about here. They cared about making money. Now they're coming back because of COVID and supply chains and the attitude of the executive now. So I mean, I'm still not happy with them. They were greedy beyond comprehension, pushed for the darn permanent trade status. But at least now, life is bringing them back, and it's through their capitalistic needs, but they're coming back.
Yeah, and I hate the fact that we're giving them tax breaks and doing that. But at this point, you have to do that. I mean, that's the only way it's going to go forward. At least that's
and hope that they've learned a lesson.
Yeah.
In the process.
Partially, but it's like your kids, it's like your kids, eat all the candy out of the candy jar, and you punish them by giving them more candy.
More candy, right? Exactly.
Only different kind of candy, and this is
right.
I mean, we're punishing them, yes, in a kind of way, but ultimately, this is the only way forward. But with it, I hope are enough strings that we learn this lesson and don't allow it to happen again. And again, it comes back to us as consumers to stop allowing this stuff to happen and hold people accountable. Now, you brought up trade deals here a second ago, and I know one of the things that one of the reasons that you've always voted against them is the job loss. As I'm hearing right now, there's a chance that trade adjustment assistance may not be re-upped going forward. And some of the rationale is hysterical. The idea that Biden is doing such a great job at reshoring manufacturing that we're no longer going to lose jobs to foreign countries, so we don't need trade adjustment assistance. This is the rationale that I'm hearing. Ludicrous, ridiculous, but yeah, this is what my friends on the Republican side are saying.
Well, it is ridiculous. I remember David Dreyer, California, who was driving me out of my mind trying to get me to, he was chair of the Rules Committee, very powerful and all of that. He was trying to get me to vote for these trade deals, and I told him, no. I said, I'm going to support trade readjustment assistance in every one of the deals. I said, but why do we need that if these are creating jobs? I threw that at them all the time, and they could never even answer that.
Yeah.
Why because they say, well, we have TRA in here. Well, you have TRA in here, I told him, because you're going to lose jobs. No, we just got it in here to smooth transitions. So at one point in time, they liked it when they were trying to promote that they were creating jobs over here. And now they don't like it because, right, Biden's done such a good job. Now, wow, the jobs are all safe. You always need it as a cushion.
There you go.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
It's just amazing that they would backpedal on that, but just amazing stuff. But Bob, as always, insightful. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Good stuff. Our good friend Bob Ney. Look, and like I said, I think Joe Biden has done a great job to this point. The whole idea that we're bringing jobs back, that we're reshoring manufacturing, that we're rebuilding the possibility of a prosperous working class. Great stuff. And the Made in America part of it, huge. And in fact, I was at the Dropkick Murphys concert yesterday, and Ken Casey, the lead singer, went on a rant about the Made in America part. Because he saw some of the Jan 6 people, because at the Allentown Fair they had a booth set up where you could buy your crazy right wing. You could buy the T-shirts, you could buy the hats, the MAGA this and that, and he went off and he got one of the shirts from the guy made in Nicaragua, and this has been one of those things that drives me nuts with my MAGA friends. They put the American flag on the front of a shirt made in China, and say that they're going to make America great. It's just But I love Ken Casey. I love the Dropkick Murphys. And, he had something to say last night. So we're going to go out on this segment with Ken Casey's rant from the concert last night in Allentown. Quick break. Right back.
Presented America proudly, but it's been co-opted by the fucking Jan 6ers, right? We the people, okay? And give me a second here, because they talk about make America great and all this stuff, right? Well, how are we going to make America great when you buy this shit in fucking Nicaragua, okay? Or China? And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you want to make America great, put your fucking money where your mouth is.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1885. White miners in Rock Spring, Wyoming, planned to wipe out the entire town's Chinese community. Chinese immigrants came to the United States looking for work, first in the California gold mines, then as laborers on the Transcontinental Railroad. Later, some worked for the Union Pacific-owned coal mines, including the one in Rock Springs. Union Pacific used racial animosity to divide its labor force. The company quashed the union at Rock Springs and only rehired 50 white miners. The other 150 miners were Chinese. And on this morning, 2 white miners went to the mines and beat 2 Chinese miners, 1 to death. A mob of 150 whites armed with rifles marched into Chinatown. The mob gave Chinese residents an hour to pack up and leave. However, after 30 minutes, some started shooting off their rifles. 1 Chinese miner was killed. The Chinese workers panicked and tried to flee. White rioters robbed, beat, and even killed the Chinese workers that they could catch. In a report to the New York Chinese consulate, Chinese survivors related some of the rioters would let a Chinese go after depriving him of all his gold and silver, while another would be beaten with the butt ends of the weapon before being let go. Some of the rioters would shoot a Chinese dead on the spot. Some stood by, shouting loudly and laughing and clapping their hands. violence. That night, white rioters burned down every building in Chinatown. In all, 28 Chinese workers were killed. President Grover Cleveland sent in federal troops to quell the violence. In the aftermath, the Chinese workers did not want to return to work. Union Pacific did not want to lose its cheap labor force and forced their return to the mines.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. Got some communications on, evidently coming up on September 12th. You're going to see in Minnesota about 15,000 nurses taking to the picket line on a 3-day strike, as the Minnesota Nurses Association has announced that hospitals in the Twin Cities and Duluth regions have voted to authorize a strike, according to their president, Mary Turner. Look, this is a historic move, they're saying, and not just because it's going to be the largest private nurses strike in U.S. history, she says, but because it's the first time that so many Minnesota nurses across the state will strike together. This is you remember the frontline heroes, the essential workers, the people that we put up on the pedestal and worshipped and said great things about. This is them going, you know what, things got to change. This is them saying, we went through the pandemic using garbage bags and wearing masks for multiple days and smearing antiseptic on the inside of it so we could be safe. Things got to change. And this is what this is. And look, I think we're going to see more strikes. I think not just with nurses, but across every industry. I think we're going to see lots more working people saying things got to change. And we're going to have a say, we're going to have a voice, and we demand fairness. I haven't heard any of these people say they want more than what's fair. They want, decent wages, they want decent benefits, they want job security. They want what they were sold, that American dream, that idea that if you work hard, you play by the rules, that you absolutely get ahead. I don't blame them. It's about time. It's about time in this country we stop being beaten down and working people start demanding their worth. That's the reality. Now, here's the problem. I had someone reach out to me and say, what do I do? Going through chemotherapy. I need to go into one of these places. What do I do? Do I postpone my therapy? And my response was very simple. These strikes are not about killing people. These strikes may be a little inconvenience, but they're more informational. They're more not targeted against working people. They're targeted against the employer, to get their attention. A strike is the last arrow in the quiver, but it's not meant to be shot through the heart of our fellow members of the working class. So what I told this person, you go to your chemotherapy. I said, if it were me, I put on my comfortable shoes, I walk out to that picket line, I find the strike captain, I walk a couple of times back and forth with them, and I talk to them about their issues. I listen to what they have to say. I walk a mile in their shoes or a couple hundred feet, because he's not doing well. And I guarantee you that strike captain will walk you to the door and open the door for you. Unless they have an injunction and the employer would have them arrested. Now that's a whole nother problem. That's something down the line. But if I were the strike captain, I would walk you across that line and to that door, and I would open the door for you. Because don't want you dead. Want you there for the fight. Because the fact that you would show up and walk with us, we want you around. It's that person who's going to cross our picket line and give us the finger while doing it. So for me, this is where, I reach out and I say, look, you see a picket line, you join it. I talked about this the other day. You join it. You march with those folks. You listen to what their lives are like. You listen to their stories. And you offer to help to make it better. We can all do that. That's the amazing part of this. It's one of the things I love about the labor movement. We can all be part of making each other's lives better. And in turn, if we're making others' lives better, we're going to make our own lives better. that whole rising tide thing they keep telling us about. When we do have a rising tide that really rises the tide for all the, the yachts and the dinghies and the boats and everything, we all do better. That's simple. Love to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, you will find ours, from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.